key clicked in the lock, and Liza and Bod were left alone in the room. That's where 4.4 left off. This is chapter 4, part 5. "He's got away," said Ebenezer Bolger. Bod could hear him now through the door. "Room like that, there wasn't anywhere he could have been hiding. We'd have seen him if he was." "The man Jack won't like that." "Who's going to tell him?" A pause. "Here, Tom Hustings, where's the brooch gone?" That? Here, I was keeping it safe." "Keeping it safe in your pocket? Funny place to be keeping it safe, if you ask me. More like you were planning to make off with it, like you was planning to keep my brooch for your own." "Your brooch, Ebenezer? Your brooch? Our brooch, you mean?" "Ours, indeed. I don't remember you being here when I got it from that boy." "That boy that you couldn't even keep safe for the man Jack, you mean? Can you imagine what he'll do when he finds that you had the boy he was looking for, and you let him go?" "Probably not the same boy. Lots of boys in the world. What's the odds it was the one he was looking for? Out the back door as soon as my back was turned, I'll bet." And then Ebenezer Bolger said in a high, wheedling voice, "Don't you worry about the man Jack, Tom Hustings. I'm sure that it was a different boy. My old mind playing tricks. And we're almost out of sloe gin. How would you fancy a good Scotch? I've got whiskey in the back room. Just you wait here a moment." The storeroom door was unlocked, and Ebenezer entered, holding a walking stick and a flashlight, looking even more sour of face than before. "If you're still in here," he said in a sour mutter, "don't even think of making a run for it. I've called the police on you, that's what I've done." A rummage in a drawer produced a half-filled bottle of whiskey, and then a tiny black bottle. Ebenezer poured several drops from the little bottle into the larger, and then he pocketed the tiny bottle. "My brooch, and mine alone," he muttered, and followed it with a barked, "Just coming, Tom!" He glared around the dark room, staring past Bod. Then he left the storeroom, carrying the whiskey in front of him. He locked the door behind him. "Here you are," came Ebenezer Bolger's voice through the door. "Give us a glass then, Tom. Nice drop of Scotch. Put hairs on your chest. Say when." Silence. "Cheap muck. Aren't you drinking?" "That sloe gin's gone to my innards. Give it a minute for my stomach to settle, then." "Here, Tom, what have you done with my brooch?" "Your brooch now? Whoa. What did you... You put something in my drink, you little grub." "What if I did? I could read it on your face that you was planning what you was planning, Tom Hustings, thief." And then there was shouting and several crashes and loud bangs as if heavy items of furniture were being overturned. Then silence. Liza said, "Quickly now, let's get you out of here." "But the door's locked." He looked at her. "Is there something you can do?" "Me? I don't have any magics will get you out of a locked room, boy." Bod crouched and peered out through the keyhole. It was locked. The key sat in the keyhole. Bod thought, then he smiled momentarily, and it lit his face like the flash of a light bulb. He pulled a crumpled sheet of newspaper from a packing case, flattened it out as best he could, then pushed it underneath the door, leaving only a corner on his side of the doorway. "What are you playing at?" asked Liza impatiently. "I need something like a pencil, only thinner," he said. "Here we go." And he took a thin paintbrush from the top of the desk, and he pushed the brushless end into the lock, jiggled it, and pushed some more. There was a muffled clunk as the key was pushed out. As it dropped from the lock onto the newspaper, Bod pulled the paper back onto the door, now with the key sitting on it. Liza laughed, delighted. "That's wit, young man," she said. "That's wisdom." Bod put the key in the lock, turned it, and pushed open the storeroom door. There were two men on the floor in the middle of the crowded antique shop. Furniture had indeed fallen over. The place was a chaos of wrecked clocks and chairs, and in the midst of it the bulk of Tom Hustings lay, fallen on the smaller figure of Ebenezer Bolger. Neither of them was moving. "Are they dead?" asked Bod. "No such luck," said Liza. On the floor beside the men was a brooch of glittering silver, a crimson-orange banded stone, held in place with claws and with snake heads, and the expression on the snake heads was one of triumph and avarice and satisfaction. Bod dropped the brooch into his pocket where it sat beside the heavy glass paperweight, the paintbrush, and the little pot of paint. "Take this, too," said Liza. Bod looked at the black-edged card with the word Jack handwritten on one side. It disturbed him. There was something familiar about it, something that stirred old memories, something dangerous. I don't want it." "You can't leave here. You can't leave it here with them," said Liza. "They were going to use it to hurt you." "I don't want it," said Bod. "It's bad. Burn it." "No!" Liza gasped. "Don't do that. You mustn't do that." "Then I'll give it to Silas," said Bod, and he put the little card into an envelope so he had to touch it as little as possible, and put the envelope into the inside pocket of his old gardening jacket beside his heart. 200 miles away, the man Jack woke from his sleep and sniffed the air. He walked downstairs. "What is it?" asked his grandmother, stirring the contents of a big iron pot on the stove. "What's got into you now?" "I don't know," he said. "Something's happening. Something interesting." And then he licked his lips. "Smells tasty," he said. "Very tasty." Lightning illuminated the cobbled street. Bod hurried through the rain, through the old town, always heading up the hill towards the graveyard. The gray day had become an early night while he was inside the storeroom, and it came as no surprise to him when a familiar shadow swirled beneath the street lamps. Bod hesitated, and a flutter of night-black velvet resolved itself into a man shape. Silas stood in front of him, arms folded. He strode forward impatiently. "Well?" he said. Bod said, "I'm sorry, Silas." "I'm disappointed in you, Bod," Silas said, and he shook his head. "I've been looking for you since I woke. You have the smell of trouble all around you, and you know you're not allowed to go out here into the living world." "I know. I'm sorry." There was rain on the boy's face, running down like tears. "First of all, we need to get you back to safety." Silas reached down and enfolded the living child inside his cloak, and Bod felt the ground fall away beneath him. "Silas," he said. Silas did not answer. "I was a bit scared," he said, "but I knew you'd come and get me if it got too bad. And Liza was there. She helped a lot." "Liza?" Silas's voice was sharp. "The witch from the potter's field." "And you say she helped you?" "Yes, she especially helped me with my fading. I think I can do it now." Silas grunted. "You can tell me all about it when we're home." And Bod was quiet until they landed beside the chapel. They went inside, into the empty hall, as the rain redoubled, splashing up from the puddles that covered the ground. Bod produced the envelope containing the black-edged card. He said, "I thought you should have this." Well, Liza did, really. Silas looked at it. Then he opened it, removed the card, stared at it, turned it over, and read Ebenezer Bolger's penciled note to himself in tiny handwriting, explaining the precise manner of use of the card. "Tell me everything," he said. Bod told him everything he could remember about the day, and at the end, Silas shook his head, slowly, thoughtfully. "Am I in trouble?" asked Bod. "Nobody owns," said Silas. "You are indeed in trouble. However, I believe I shall leave it leave it to your parents to administer whatever discipline and reproach they believe to be needed. In the meantime, I need to dispose of this." The black-edged card vanished inside the velvet cloak, and then, in the manner of his kind, Silas was gone. Bod pulled the jacket up over his head and clambered up the slippery paths to the top of the hill, to the Frobisher mausoleum. He pulled aside Ephraim Pettifer's coffin, and he went down, and still further down. He replaced the brooch beside the goblet and the knife. "Here you go," he said, "all polished up, looking pretty." "It comes back," said the Sleer, with satisfaction in its smoke-tendril voice. "It always comes back." It had been a long night. Bod was walking sleepily and a little gingerly past the small tomb of the wonderfully named Miss Liberty Roach. What she spent is lost, what she gave remains with her always. Reader, be charitable. Past the final resting place of Harrison Westwood, baker of this parish, and his wives, Marion and Joan, to the potter's field. Mr. and Mrs. Owens had died several hundred years before it had been decided that beating children was wrong, and Mr. Owens had, regretfully, that night done what he saw as his duty, and Bod's bottom stung like anything. Still, the look of worry on Mrs. Owens' face had hurt Bod worse than any beating could have done. He reached the iron railings that bounded the potter's field and slipped between them. "Hello," he called. There was no answer, not even an extra shadow in the hawthorn tree. "I hope I didn't get you into any trouble, too," he said. Nothing. He had replaced the jeans in the gardener's hut. He was more comfortable in just his gray winding sheet, but he had kept the jacket. He liked having the pockets. When he had gone to the shed to return the jeans, he had taken a small hand scythe from the wall where it hung, and with it he attacked the nettle patch in the potter's field, sending the nettles flying, slashing and gutting them till there was nothing but stinging stubble on the ground. From his pocket he took the large glass paperweight, its insides a multitude of bright colors, along with the paint pot and the paintbrush. He dipped the brush into the paint and carefully painted in brown paint on the surface of the paperweight the letters E.H. And below that he wrote, "We don't forget." Bedtime soon, and it would not be wise for him to be late to bed for some time to come. He put the paperweight down on the ground that had once been a nettle patch, placed it in the place he estimated her head would have been, and pausing only to look at his handiwork for a moment, he went through the railing and made his way, rather less gingerly, back up the hill. "Not bad," said a pert voice from the potter's field behind him. "Not bad at all." But when he turned to look, there was no one there. Phew, exciting chapter. Big getaway. I'm thrilled that he was able to escape, but this adds a little bit to the mystery of the man Jack. I was really surprised at the part where he said they should burn the card, and Liza gasped. "No!" she gasped. "Don't do that. You mustn't do that." And I'm wondering if that's somehow connected to what the instructions were on the back of the card that Ebenezer Bolger had written. Maybe something about burning it to summon the man Jack. We haven't heard from that guy in a while. All right, until next time.